What is man? Storyteller, mythmaker, and destroyer of the living world.
Half Earth. Are you serious?
I'm serious. I know it sounds radical, but we must have it if we're going to save most of the species remaining on Earth.
Lisa Haven here. What you just heard was Technocrat Edward O. Wilson in his book Half Earth, where he entertains the idea of limiting and decreasing human population to about 50% on the Earth and giving the other 50% of the Earth to natural, whatever it naturally does without humankind. Now, he doesn't mean literally splitting the Earth in half for humans, half for animals. But what he does and says in his book is that basically he wants 50% sporadically spread throughout the Earth for humans and 50% untouchable by humankind. Can you imagine what that would do to the human race, not allowed to use resources on one half? You're talking about a major significant decrease in human population where you take half the Earth and make it unusable and you're only allowed to use the other portion of the Earth. This is insane. This is all a part of an agenda that's been pushed, the depopulation agenda. Georgia Guidestones talks about limiting the population under 500 million people. This is the same idea that technocrat Edward O. Wilson is pushing. This is crazy. And the clip that you saw was on PBS of all things. Why? Because the mainstream media has an agenda. They want to make you think along the lines that we need to be decreased, and they want to put the Agenda 2030, also known as Agenda 21, ideals into your head and make humans the problem. As Edward said in the beginning, humans are the problem. And he made that very clear, that we're disruptors of the Earth. So not true. God put us here to be gardeners and tenders of the Earth. And that's what we can do. And that's what we were meant here to do. And in no way does half of us need to be pushed to parts of the Earth. And you're really going to have to limit population in order to get it to that, with the resources being cut down where you're not allowed to use half. That is going to severely decrease population if some idea was pushed like that. Now, let me read to you a quote from his book where he talks about basically the title of the book, Half Earth, is really what he means. Here's what he says: leave about half the Earth's surfaces mostly free of humans, so wild plants and animals can live there unimpeded, as they did for so long before humans arrived. Same with the oceans, by the way. About a third of our food comes from the sea. So the seas have to be healthy too. In other words, forget using part of the fish and animals in the sea for food, because you only get half the oceans as well. That's where the people on the far progressive left, the liberals, are wanting to take us, putting nature above God's own creation, humankind, when in reality, humanity is above any animal that's on the earth. We don't put them above humankind. We are the top of the food chain here on Earth, and that is where it needs to lie. Now, check out this report. This is on theguardian.com, and they actually did an outline of this book, but they further detail in this report titled "Empty Half the Earth of Its Humans. It's the Only Way to Save the Planet." But they further detail that part of the book talks about and discusses pushing people into mega cities, basically making people live in the cities. No one is allowed to live rural in order to make the earth half empty of humanity. This is what the book details, and it sounds eerily similar to something I talked about in the past, which I'm going to get into in a moment. But before I get into that, I just want to say this. Imagine being forced to move into the cities. Keep in mind, this happened in China already. They built empty cities, took all the farmers from the outskirts, the individual farmers, pushed them into these cities from rural areas. Why? Because the people are more controllable in the cities. The governments, the technocrats, those pulling the strings can control the food. This is why they're pushing Agenda 2030, also known as Agenda 21 again. But this is why, because the technocrats and those pulling the string, and I say technocrats, they're scientists, your elite scientists that are working with the ones pulling the strings. They're all part of the New World Order. They're all part of the Illuminati, but they are pulling the strings. And if they can get us in these cities, they can control everything. They've got you on camera. They've got you on film. They've got you on computers. This is why I say get a VPN. Please make sure you have a VPN. These things are illegal in multiple countries for a reason, but they're not illegal here in America. I use Virtual Shield, and they are upping it to 30% off right now. So check out virtualshield.com/Lisa Haven while you can, because these are things, they don't need to know what you're Googling. If you're not on it, get on one somewhere. But all that information is below. But I kind of sidetracked, but they want us in these mega cities for complete control. It's not about Agenda 2030. It never was about saving the planet. It's about ultimate control. And the guy, Edward Wilson, is pushing that to the brink. Let me prove it to you. Check out this site, America2050.org. This is a site that works with government organizations to detail a plan of how to push people into mega regions. You can see 11 different regions on the map there, and you can see, look at this map. For starters, you see little slivers of color. That is the areas that they want to push people into megacities. Then you see just a faded area. All that faded area is part of your half Earth that is untouchable, if you will. This would be the untouchable portion. But I find it rather odd that natural resources are taking up, not natural resources, but untouchable areas where just animals will roam, take up way more than where they're intending to push the humans. Pay attention to that, because the ultimate end game is to push us into those mega cities for control. It has nothing to do with anything else. If you are live out in rural area, that's amazing. You're more self-sustainable and less reliant on them, and they can't control you as much. That is why they see it as a threat. But that's not the only one. Let me throw up one more site. And this particular site is called footprintnetwork.org. This is an organization that works with our governments and all across the world, actually, to calculate how much of a problem humans, that means you and I, how much of a problem we are. They actually calculate what they're calling overshot days. And on these, it basically says when countries use up their natural resources, this is above and beyond their natural resources. They give an example. I think Sweden was one where they said 118th day of the year, they've used up everything they're allowed. And so the other half of the year is just a waste. This is talking about what you breathe, your carbon dioxide, your oxygen, all of that included in this. It's an insane calculation, but it's basically degrading humans and saying humans are using too much of our natural resources. We're all going to die, which is just a lie. It's going to happen the way Bible prophecy, I believe. God's going to make it come down the way he talked about. And it's not the way that they're pushing necessarily, because it's just a money ploy. If they can, not only money, but a power. You always have to factor in money and power. Two things that sometimes we can just forget or lay to the wayside, but they get the money because they get you to invest on all those kinds of Agenda 2030 products, or they invest in them, And so they reap the earnings from all these new investments, but they force you into these new investments to save the planet. Meanwhile, they're going to accomplish their depopulation agenda, because the smaller the population, the easier we are to control. Right now, they know that we outnumber them. If we were to say, get upset and go against them, we've got them outnumbered, although they do have powerful weapons. But we have a mass amount of numbers. And so that is something that they fear, but they definitely can control us by moving us into cities, all a part of the agenda. I've read all of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. I know what's in it, and it's not pretty. And again, it's money and power and control. We cannot let our kids go down that path and that generation. Please keep that in mind. Educate people on what's going on, and share this far and wide, and subscribe to my channel. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. Please don't forget to check out my sponsor at virtualshield.com/Lisa Haven. And I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.